Welcome to the Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island. Free-flowing talk with a charismatic, down-to-earth host. Join Dean as he interviews and chats freely with his guests, ranging from superstar athletes to politicians, industry titans, and everyday folk with fascinating life stories. Dean educates, entertains, and most of all, touches people's lives. You're listening to the Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dean Blechman Show, back with my special featured guest, my dear friend, Ray Perini. And Ray's running for Suffolk County District Attorney, New York, Long Island. Glad to have you back, Ray.
It's good to be back.
We're back at it again. Listen, let's talk now about personal experiences that Ray Perini's had with alcohol and drug addiction.
Well, you know, I have over a 40-year career, and I'll say this, going back many years, there were several prosecutors and some defense attorneys who had the alcohol and cocaine problems. And I've had to actually take them by force into rehab programs. Talk to them, talk to their family, get the family behind us, and make sure they got into the program. It's something you have to do if you want to sleep at night, because you know that they're on a collision course with death. One of them died.
Wow.
And what you learn from doing that, it's like doing anything that's making the tough choice and doing the tough thing. Some of them took the cure, but they never forgave me for making them go in, for making them confront the reality of their problem. But I'm proud I did it, because I know they have careers today and going forward. But, you know, as you get into the drug world, one of the most difficult things I had to do, my dearest friend, his son had a terrible drug problem. They did everything they could to fight it, but it caused his death. And the homicide squad called me up to be the one to tell the family. When you sit them down and you tell them what happened, and you see the pain in their face, you see that you can literally hear the pain in their voices. It's probably the most difficult thing I had to do. And it really gave me something of a rudder going forward with my career on how to try and confront the problem. I mean, I think I've told you in another segment that one of the hardest things to do is to convince a parent that their child is a drug addict. The child's always going to lie about what they're doing. They're going to tell you one-tenth of what their problem is. You know, a classic case, and I was not involved, and it was the Loeffler case. Remember the pharmacy case where he went in and murdered the pharmacist and people in the pharmacy?
What year was that? That was that horrific event that was in Medford, correct?
Correct.
South of 112, I think.
Correct.
Just south of the expressway. What an awful.
But you know what? It's kind of it fits the model of what I'm talking about, because the mother knew he had a problem. He stole money from her. She couldn't go to the police because she didn't know what it was going to do to his criminal record and his future. Now he's in prison for multiple murders. Had she gone to the police, had she done what I've counseled other parents to do, and that is have them arrested. Because when I have the hammer of a jail sentence over their head, that'll keep them in treatment. And if they're in treatment for a year to a year and a half, and they're there for the first 3 or 4 months, knowing that if they leave, they're going to go to jail, that becomes what you need to get them into treatment.
Wow.
Nobody goes in voluntarily. You can't ask them to go in. We need the criminal justice system with the diversion courts to compel them to go in. And I've learned that over 40 years, and I firmly believe that.
Wow. So what can the DA's office, what do you see that can help with this, with parents?
I think that
you could step back a little bit with your chair, just a drop.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry about
That's
that.
all right. That's all right.
You know what? I think, as I did back in the 80s when I was chief of narcotics, I think we can encourage the victim of these people profiteering from drugs, encourage them to get into these programs. But they have to know they must stay in the program to get the benefit. And at the end of the day, if we have someone who really is successful, we can actually dismiss the charges so that they don't have a blemish on their life. But it has to be the right person. It has to be someone committed. And again, I go back to this. I don't believe that someone who's a real heroin addict is going to say, oh, well, I'll go into rehab tomorrow, because they say that all the time. I think you need the carrot and the stick. The carrot is you can have a great result. The stick is you're going to prison if you don't do this. And like I said.
So that you feel that carrot has to be. They
have to know there's a benefit at the end of the day, but they also have to know they must adhere to the program. And it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder than going to jail for 6 months or a year. But they have to. Once we get them in the program, I think we can actually handle the problem.
Okay.
You don't know how many parents. I mean, we've had cases where we actually had to drive someone to a rehab center in Harlem because the parents were so frustrated with the child, so sick of it. It wasn't 2 weeks ago, I had the first person in the federal court out here in Suffolk go into a diversion program because they're all in Brooklyn, and the judge saw that this was a young man that was worth trying to save. We put him into the program, and he's doing well right now. But you know what? His brother overdosed.
Wow.
And you have to deal with these people, and it gives you a different view of what's going on out there. It makes it personal.
Ray, a little bit more of an education. I mean, Sharon and I, our kids grew up in this house and went through the Three Village School District, went to Ward Melville High School. And, what is the reason why it seems that drugs and heroin are so much more prevalent over the last 10 years than it was maybe back then when they went through the school district? Unless you're going to tell me, Dean, listen, it was there back then. I had open communication with my kids growing up. Listen, if there was the technology to, we always wanted our kids to be at our house, not at other people's house. So we always had 150, 200 kids over here. Thank God we didn't have Facebook and the technology. Otherwise, Newsday would have put me on the front cover. There would have been some challenging times. But we had open conversations with all these kids that came through here. And unless I was blind to it, it just seems with whoever I speak to that it's much more prevalent on Long Island and throughout the school systems the past 10 years than back then.
I'm going to say, when I came out from Brooklyn, we did heroin raids in Riverhead, in Wyandanch, in areas like that, locked up 25, 30 people selling heroin. But the cocaine problems were in the more affluent neighborhoods because that was a more expensive drug. And these college kids and high school kids were actually doing something called freebasing, which is very similar to using crack cocaine. It becomes addictive. I mean, the problem's always been here. It is because of the number of our kids who are dying that it's become such a big law enforcement and social problem. And a little history. When I started out as a prosecutor, LSD was like the vogue drug. And we could educate people out of LSD because of the people who were dying. Now with fentanyl and heroin, the high is so intense. I mean, I've been to funerals. Both my children are very successful. We've never had a drug problem in my family. But they're friends. They're 35, 36-year-old friends.
Yeah, awful.
I've been to those wakes. I've dealt with their parents. I helped them out when they were having the problems, but we didn't take it to the next step. So, I mean, I think the drug is so powerful now that we have to stop it before they start using it. Because even going to these wakes and watching their friends die is not education.
Yeah, you gotta stop it. You gotta prevent it before it starts. Because it's my understanding, it's few get off of it.
Well, you know what? There are successes. Not a lot, but it doesn't mean you can't keep trying. You have a kid who's an addict, You must try and get him into rehab. And the most effective way is to do exactly what I've said before. When I sit down with these parents and tell them, have them arrested, give me the vehicle of the courts to have that stick that they're going to go to jail, to compel them to go into treatment for that year or year and a half. That's the only chance you have. No addict is going to, any addict on the streets can say, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll go in tomorrow. But unless you have some way of monitoring that, never happens. They become very skilled liars. And all they want is that drug. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I got a young man out on a parole violation. He was going to go into a treatment program the very next day. His mother called me up the next morning and said he died. I was so, it hurt so much that I didn't get him a bed before he came out. But with parole, it was hard to do. I can do that now, right now, if somebody has a problem like that. They get incarcerated if the parents are willing to go with this. We put them in jail, and they don't get out until they have a bed. So they go from the jail to a rehab center, and there they stay for a year to a year and a half if they want to take the cure.
Wow.
But it's a terrible thing to deal with, and it's terrible to see the pain it creates in very good families.
Yeah. Okay, Ray. Listen, I'm going to put your feet to the fire.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
I'm going to put Ray's feet to the fire now. What I'd like to know is share with my audience and all my friends, family, and constituents throughout Suffolk County, Long Island. What's Ray's Perini's first few months? What's your plan?
I'm going to go back to what I did when I was chief of narcotics. I made my bones. We made great cases by working with the Drug Enforcement Task Force, working with the FBI, working with the state troopers, working with Nassau and Suffolk police departments, and I actually created the East End Drug Task Force. What I do the day I get in, I call up all the bosses, just like I did back in the day. We sit down and we have lunch. And they're going to know that my plan now is I don't want the headlines. I don't want the glory. I don't want the press conference. I want to get the job done. So if I have a problem in your county or I need federal help, I want you to come in and help me, and I'll help you. And I will, if I have the statute, like I told you about the Kingpin statute, I expect to take the case and prosecute it because I can put him in jail for 25 years to life. Mm-hmm. If it's a RICO case or a conspiracy case where the federal government has a better statute, we give it to the federal government. We let our prosecutors work with them. But we share information. We share the best laws possible. And we don't worry about who gets the credit.
Wow.
And it's kind of like taking politics out of law enforcement, too. Remember, we've had some problems in the DA's office. They've been under investigation. There were many articles in Newsday about them not turning over material that would prove that somebody was innocent. We're not here to convict the innocent. We're not here to sandbag somebody at a trial. My prosecutors will take courses, and they will adhere to all the rules. We will convict people, but we'll do it properly. That's what has to happen. And I'll start something else, and this is a bit of something that's new to Suffolk. There's a conviction integrity panel in many offices now, so that if there is somebody who's convicted, it's an old crime, and new evidence comes to light, I'm going to take a look at it. And I'm going to make sure they do it right. And I'm going to make sure what they call these Brady violations do not happen. And I'll go through that whole office. There's 190 lawyers. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to ask them what they've done. And we're going to weed out the dead wood. Because I'm going to run an apolitical, best DA's office I can. Those 190 lawyers aren't political hooks.
Wow.
They're going to be talent. That's what I intend to do. And you know why I can do that? Because I don't want anything other than to make the office great.
I know that.
I don't want anything else. I'm not going anywhere else. I've trained my whole life for this.
Well, listen, I know you can do it. And I know that you could make Suffolk County, Long Island, a safe place to live, to work, and to raise a family. I mean, when you look at, when you look at Ray Perini's career, extensive career for decades, I mean, wiretaps, organized crime investigations, narcotics investigations, murder investigations. I mean, when I did Dean on the Street back in your office in Hauppauge, I mean, the awards and accolades and letters that throughout your career. I mean, you've been there, you've done it, you've worked hard, you've executed, and most importantly, you've performed.
Well, see, and it's my turn to give back. This county's I've raised my kids here. They're very successful. I've had a great life here. But this is what I've trained my career to do, and it's my time, my turn to give back. I will do it without politics, without political hooks. It'll be an office where all we do is what's right.
Well, listen, I wish you much success, always the best of health. I love seeing you around town. And listen, I'm reaching out to all my fellow Suffolk County, Long Island constituents. And I'm asking you to please vote for Ray Perini on row B, the Republican line, on November 7th. Okay? That he's the guy to make Long Island, Suffolk County, Long Island, a better and safe place to live. So thanks for being on the show. And from all of us on the Dean Blechman Show, have a great day.
You've been listening to the Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island, New York. From all of us here, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. We look forward to hearing your comments via Facebook, Twitter, Skype, and email. And don't forget, you can visit the webpage anytime for the up-and-coming guest list. From all of us here, have a good evening.